Hey guys, welcome back to Gryphon Studio. So this week I've been making things out of circles and hexagons. Why? Because dungeons in D&D are very kind of square, very right angle-y, very uniform and very perpendicular and other straight line words. So yeah, circles are cool. Hexagons, different shapes are cool. Really, you just want to make stuff out of any kind of cool geometric shape that would look good in your dungeon. You can do a triangular room if you wanted. However, they're difficult to do without a proxon cutter. They're difficult to do even on a proxon cutter when you don't have a jig for it. So I don't have a jig for it, so I've used other things. And hopefully this was actually a bit of a learning curve for me, a bit of a learning experience, but hopefully, it'll show you that you can pretty much make any shape you want just using the normal proxon fence and a few things from around your house if you've got them, or if you can just go in the store and you can buy things, small things, cheap things that are just the right shape. Even children's toys could be used for this, those little shape toys. Let's make something. I made some hexagonal pillars and a circular ritual circle thing, like a witch's circle thing. Yeah, you see what I mean. Let's get to it. So to make something that was hexagonal, I'm going to need a guide, and I found this little kind of lid from a pot. I think it originally contained toothpicks or cocktail sticks, or whatever you want to call them. And the idea is that it was just a bit of hard plastic that I could drill a few holes in the top and then add a few prongs, which were made out of paperclip. And this would allow me to sit it into some XPS foam, keep it kind of stable, and then I could run the guide past the fence on the hot wire table. So I've got a whole bunch of kind of offcuts of XPS foam, and I stuck it on the guide and I ran it past the fence. So as long as you keep the edge touching the fence, you can create an exact copy of the shape that you're using. Now you can pretty much do this with anything, like a circle or a pentagon or anything else. Movie magic, and it should create the same shape. So I needed to texture them, and for that I used the tumble method. So a couple of rocks in a box, and then shake it until they're all kind of smoothed off and indented and things. I did actually do a little bit more of aluminium ball on them, but I also took some thinner pieces that were a little bit bigger, a little bit wider than the hexagons I just did, and these are going to act as the base. And to turn those hexagons into pillars, just got to glue them together with some hot glue and make sure they're nice and flush and the edges are all neat and tidy. I went with 7 high for this. That means it's 7 centimeters high, since I'm using 10mm thick foam. And then I stuck the whole pillar down onto one of those wider sections. It's a little bit thinner than the 10mm, but it's wider, so it gives it a good looking base. Now I needed some circles, so I made this little jig, which is not as good as the shifting lands one, but it seems to do the job, and I made it out of a little bit of card. I think it's medium weight graphics chipboard. I just etched my own measurements onto it, and the center point around where the circle rotates is just a nail sticking through the card. Very, very simple. Now I want to cut this disc that I've just cut into 2 thinner sheets. So I'm going to use a bit of wood as a guide, because the fence is very, very low on a proxon, which is where the shifting lands jig comes in really handy. Now I kind of messed this up a little bit. It's a bit wonky, but it did the job. So the reason I cut it in half was because I wanted to make a 2-level effect. So I took one of those halves and I wanted to cut it into a smaller disc. So I took it back to the Proxon and I took about ½ an inch off the entire perimeter, and that left me with like a 4-inch disc. So I wanted to cut in some flagstones into the larger disc that would act as the base. For this I had to use a protractor and measure out 36 degrees for each stone. That would give me 10 stones. Obviously you could always use more or less stones, just divide 360 by the amount of stones that you would like to have, and then use a protractor and make some very light scores along the XPS form, which we can bevel again later on. And the good thing is you only need to do half, because you can just extend the line beyond and that will give you your next flagstone. Okay, so I wanted a kind of generically mysterious / creepy vibe for this thing, so I chose a design online and I just tried to replicate it on some XPS form. I'm using the disc, the smaller disc from before, and just traced around a few cups and my wash bottle, and just tried to replicate this design. Now, trying to draw a pentagram or pentangle, or whatever you want to call it, a 5-pointed star, you just got to get the angles right. So really it's 36 degrees from center, which will get you that vague V shape, and then you just got to take it from the next point. Again, 36 degrees. And you can just join up the sides, and then eventually you'll end up with something that looks pretty much like Captain America's shield. Weird, but okay. And then I textured using an aluminium ball on the larger disc, and just needed to go around the edges rather than in the middle, because the middle won't be seen when the smaller disc goes on top. Like so. And you can just use some hot glue to stick those together. Now just very carefully scoring the lines with an X-Acto blade, and then we'll bevel those with a little beveling tool. You could use a cocktail stick or some sort of mechanical pencil or something. I tend to use a old paintbrush handle that I've sharpened. I found a better way of doing circles using my old jig and holding the knife in place. Super easy. Well, at least it looks less like Captain America's shield now. And don't forget to do the edges, of course, because those bits will be seen. As you can see, I've etched in a few random symbols there. I didn't know entirely what these meant, but I thought they looked kind of cool, so that's enough. And I just textured the top with the aluminium ball. And then it's time for the Mod Podge and black paint. The Mod Podge should seal it quite nicely. Black paint provides a really good undercoat. Mix them together, you got yourself a perfect kind of primer. So don't forget to do the pillars as well. once the undercoat is dry, we can now start making this stone look like stone. So take a medium grey and just go pretty heavy with a dry brush, cover the whole thing, and then without really changing brushes, just use a much lighter grey and just really pick out the edges, and a very light dry brush all around the edge and over the top to pick out some surface details. And of course the exact same thing on the pillars. Now you'll notice here I've also added a little chain to each pillar. This is just basic kind of jewellery chain from some old costume jewellery that my sisters gave me. And then once that's bone dry, we can go onto the wash. Same as before, just dab it on everywhere. I do this in pretty much every video, but I figured I would show you just in case you haven't seen them. And it's just the same wash that I would always use. It's kind of a black-brown mix with a bit of water in there just to thin it out. And I do the same on the pillars as well. Alright, so if you've seen any of my previous videos, you'll know that I absolutely love doing moss on things. I just put it on everything. So I took some Woodland Scenics Fine Turf Burnt Grass and Woodland Scenics Fine Turf Yellow Grass, and I mixed those together and added some PVA and kind of made a little paste like this. I don't know exactly what the ratios are. I remember one of my YouTuber commenters asking, and it's something like 2/3 is the turf grass and maybe 1/3 is PVA glue. So hopefully that helps, and yeah, just find a little crack in the ground and just smear it about. It looks pretty good no matter how you do it, to be honest. Now a while ago I actually tea stained some paper and printed out at home just a few little sheets of various things like posters, flyers, spell sheets and things like that, and I just sort of ripped a bit up, smushed it down, and then applied it to the base with some PVA glue. I wanted to keep it nice and flat, and so that it wouldn't get kind of like lifted away from natural playing on it. And then I just decided to add a few skulls to the edge here. Skulls make everything look good. These are just the Games Workshop skulls that you get on a sprue, and you get about 100 and something in a box. So I had loads of these left over, and I just thought, why not use a skull? Then use some blood for the blood god, and I kind of stippled it down on the ritual circle, just in various places, trying to get it so it kind of looked like blood spatter. You could do this using the kind of paint flicking technique off a little toothbrush or something, or an old paintbrush, but this is much less messy and it's less random. I didn't want it to be too over the top, so I chose this method, and to be honest I think it looks perfectly fine. Now we can't have grey chains, so I took some Citadel Rhinox hide and I just applied that to the length of the chain. I use this on most of my old ironwork type project where I want some rusty old chains or weapons or something. Once the Rhinox hide was dry, I used some Citadel Riser Rust and just kind of lightly brush it on the top just to pick out that detail. Now I want some candles on this project as well, so I cut out a few lengths of styrene tube, and it's only about 2mm across. I then cut up some bits of paperclip in lengths that were shorter than the styrene tube bits that I cut, and then I just glued the paperclip inside the styrene tube, but leaving a little bit protruding from the top, and that'll act as a wick, or a flame even. I'm using a super glue here to glue them down. Thankfully the Mod Podge will seal any of the XPS foam so that you don't get any of that kind of melting effect. And I put some on the bases of the pillar as well. This is why I like doing bases on things like pillars, because it gives you a little ledge that you can just sort of decorate a little and give some character and some visual interest to the piece. I then use some Screaming Skull to paint the candles, a kind of a creamy, glossy creamy colour, and I put some little kind of dribbles of wax as well, just going down some of the stonework, just to give it a little bit more character. Then we want to do the flames, so I use some Uriel yellow and just very carefully painted the paperclip portion of these candles. You can see them. And then once that was dry, you can go in with more Rise of Rust. Just pick out the very tips of those candle flames. It gives you a really nice effect. There we go, guys, all done. So I'll give you a quick close-up. There you go. Looks pretty sweet, I think. So yeah. Alright, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please let me know in the comments, and feel free to like and subscribe and all that stuff. And let me know if there's anything you want me to tackle in the future. If you are one of those people that leaves me comments, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much, and I'll try and get back to every single person if I can. I'm also on Instagram, which is going to be on the bottom of the screen, so feel free to check me out on there and follow me, and you can hopefully keep up to date with all the interesting stuff I post on there. Yeah, so thanks for following me on there if you do so. And that's it for this one. I will see you again next time. Stay safe and happy crafting.